Oh, this will be a fun one. Credit where credit is due. I got this idea from ProZD. He was like a big Viner back in the day. Really funny dude. Also a voice actor. I've been watching him for a while, so that is why I'm making this video. Shout out to ProZD. I thought it would be fun to take a look at my top 10 most played Steam games and kind of talk about why I played them so much, what they mean to me, etc. And feel free in the comment section to put your top 10 Steam games or your number one whatever. I would love to get a little bit of a discussion going because I'm interested to see how people's lists look. I guess we'll go reverse order. I was originally intending on going from most played to least played, but reverse order, I guess, has some fun to see what, the most played game for me will be. But yeah, coming in at 228 hours is Darkest Dungeon. I'm so glad to have this game on this list because I love this game. This game is so cool. For those that don't know what it is, it's basically kind of like a dungeon delving, turn-based, really dark, like super dark themed dungeon crawler. I grew up on Final Fantasy, so the whole turn-based, making a squad of 4 characters that all have different skills that can synergize, and using that in order to take down these bosses as you go through these massive dungeons, which, by the way, this game is insanely difficult. I beat it on normal difficulty back in the day, and that was a process. This is one of those games where the normal difficulty is so insanely hard. The art style for this game is immaculate. I love it so much. I love how the characters look. I love everything about it. The only thing I don't like is that the sequel, Darkest Dungeon 2, I just could not resonate with. I tried so hard to get into the sequel, but it's so different and it just did not feel the same. Darkest Dungeon, the first game, in my opinion, is a literal masterpiece. I love that game so much, and I really need to jump back in at some point and try to beat it on, I think it's Stygian difficulty, which is the hardest difficulty. Man, if you haven't played Darkest Dungeon and you think you'll like it, give it a shot. Coming in at number 9, we have Fallout New Vegas with 247 hours played. Honestly, a lot of these games have lower hours than I would have thought, but still, 247 hours is quite significant. This is one of those where it's like, what am I going to say about it? I mean, New Vegas is a masterpiece for what it is, which is pretty crazy because if I remember correctly, the dev time that they had for it was super duper small, which is why there's a lot of cut content you can kind of see. That's one of my biggest negatives about the game is you can kind of tell there's a lot of cut content, but what Obsidian was able to do with the amount of time that they had on this, Fallout 3 engine or whatever, the creation engine at the time, is insane. I mean, it really was just a love letter, not even a love letter because it's its own thing, but if you played Fallout 1 and 2, you can really see how, New Vegas is a real, true Fallout game. And I love Bethesda, but I just think New Vegas kind of takes it to the next level past Fallout 3 and past Fallout 4. Where it's just the Fallout that I find myself gravitating towards if I really want to role play a character. The way that the main story is set up with the 4 factions, or at least the 4 major choices, is so well done. It's just like it can fit so many different characters. There's so many options for role play, which has gotten more and more important to me as time has gone on. And I just think it is genuinely the best Fallout game. Also, the DLCs are awesome, except for Honest Hearts, which I don't like. Coming in at number 8 is Dark Souls Remastered at 273 hours rounded up. For those that don't know, I am a massive fan of the Soulsborne series. We have a full Dark Souls Remastered 100%, Bloodborne 100%, Dark Souls 3 100%. A lot of people, I think, don't know those series exist on this channel. I have a tattoo that is Dark Souls themed. It's kind of a mixture between Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne. I'm a huge Soulsborne fan, and yeah, Dark Souls Remastered is just the kind of easiest one to get into. It's the Dark Souls that I started with and that I know like the back of my hand in terms of the roots and everything. So it's just one of those games where you can jump in and have a different build, do a different weapon. I think I've pretty much seen the bulk of it at this point, so it gets harder and harder to kind of come back to it. But I played this game so much and feel like I know it so well to the point where I'd consider genuinely learning how to speed run it for the first speed game that I've ever done. I never did that because I don't have the time, but I considered it. But yeah, I mean, what's there to say about Dark Souls? It created an entire new genre. I mean, it shook up the entire video game industry. There's so many games that to this day are trying to kind of emulate what Dark Souls really did. And a lot of people give it crap. A lot of people, I feel like, give the Souls series crap, especially Dark Souls 3. I've heard so many haters talk about Dark Souls 3 in my chat. It's almost like there's this thought that Dark Souls 3 is not a good game or something. I don't know if it's a hot take or what, but I think Dark Souls 3 is a masterpiece. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. The point is, Dark Souls, the original, is it just was something so fresh and new, and something that you could just jump into without having these massive, time-consuming cutscenes or stories or worlds or anything like that. And it perfectly fits what I enjoy about video games. And the remastered version is just, you know, kind of the easiest one to jump back into. Coming in at number 7 is Cookie Clicker, with 285 hours rounded up. This one's kind of a joke because it's an idle game, and if anybody doesn't know what an idle game is, obviously the point is to leave them open and have, you know, a lot of things accrue over time. Cookie Clicker is like the OG. I don't know if it was the original, but it's like, you know, the most known idle game, and for good reason. I mean, it's insane. I never got fully into the lore or the gameplay or anything like that, but there's this crazy stuff that happens. I mean, you'll get like old ladies to start rolling your cookies, like baking your cookies with the rolling pins, and then as you upgrade them, there's this thing where it creates the grandma apocalypse, and they'll turn into these eldritch beings. And there's just a whole bunch of crazy crap that can happen. It sounds like a silly joke, Cookie Clicker, but it's an insanely in-depth game that has way more strategies and lore than you would think. So I really did get into it, and I, you know, kept it open and idled it for a while, but you have to also be active. There's like an active and an idle strategy. So point is, Cookie Clicker's on here because it's an idle game, and I'm not a big player of idle games, but Cookie Clicker is definitely my favorite. Coming in at number 6 with 328 hours, and this is one of those that would extend way past that if it counted like my original time. I mean, God, that and League of Legends would be the top 2 that I've ever put hours into in my entire life. MapleStory. Oh my God, the things that I could say about this game. This game is one of those that seriously means the world to me, and it's weird because it's like a kind of, you know, little chibi anime JRPG style kind of MMORPG, and I don't play MMOs at all, but we all have one, right? We all have an MMORPG that we played as a kid. For lots of people, it's World of Warcraft. For lots of people, it's RuneScape. For me, it was MapleStory. Man, oh man, this game. I mean, this is like nostalgia maximum overload for me. No joke. I will go to bed and I'm like, oh, I want to have pleasant thoughts as I drift off to sleep. And I will think of memories of MapleStory. There's just something about it. It's so hard to quantify. I remember going to Catholic Mass as a kid, which I was not into, sitting on the pews during all the praying, putting my head down and just thinking, I cannot wait to get home and play more MapleStory. That was all that was on my mind. It's just that MMORPG-ness that, again, you know, most of us have if we got into that when they were popping off with World of Warcraft and everything. It's just the memories of making friends through the MMORPG, through the chat, and then teaming up for party quests. I mean, going to Ludibrium. I hope there's one person that leaves a comment that's like, oh my God, MapleStory meant the same to me, because you know what I'm talking about. Like going to Ludibrium, the Lego toy-themed world, for the first time. I remember when the ships were activated. You could go to, because there was these like, you know, kind of airship stations, and you could go to the airship station and travel to Ludibrium for the first time. I mean, God, MapleStory would genuinely probably be like, if you could dilute good childhood nostalgic memories and into its purest form, it would be MapleStory for me. I mean, there's not much more to say. So I played 1 billion hours as a kid, so this is purely on Steam, which was probably just me trying to rekindle that nostalgia. So 328 hours probably has nothing on like how much I've put into it off of Steam, but Man, oh man, let me know if you played MapleStory, because it's a deeper cut when it comes to MMORPGs. And at number 5, we have the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Game of the Year edition with 340 hours played. This is another one where, I mean, if you count the hours that I played on the Xbox 360, this would be like a million times more. Again, what do you say? I mean, everybody knows on this channel, I've played a lot of Oblivion. I've gotten some comments because I feel like these days I'm kind of critical about Oblivion, but it's more so in comparison to Skyrim, because I just feel like there's an air of like, Oblivion's this perfect game and it's so much better than Skyrim because Skyrim's the popular older brother or younger brother or whatever. And I feel like, personally, Skyrim was a huge jump up in quality from Oblivion. But Oblivion does have that atmosphere, the charm, that nostalgia. You really want to come back and play it. It's very welcoming, inviting, happy environment. And I get that totally. And obviously, I think it's because I've played the guilds so many times. Like, I kind of know them like the back of my hand, right? But if you haven't done that, or if you've played it only a couple of times, I mean, there's so much fun to go through. So I love Oblivion, and I want the record to be clear here. Obviously, it's in my top 10 played games of all time on Steam. I just think Skyrim was a huge improvement. So I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is I want to be clear. I love this game, but it's more so for what it meant to me back when I first played it. You know what I mean? It's not something that I find as easy to jump back into these days as I do with Skyrim. But Oblivion's obviously a fantastic video game, and if you haven't played it, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And at number 4, we have Dark Souls 3 at 356 hours played, which is honestly astounding to me. I'm really surprised I put that much time into it. I mean, we did do 100% of it on the channel. It's a much bigger game than Dark Souls 1, because I feel like, honestly, in my mind, I've played Dark Souls 1 more, which I probably have with other versions of the game outside of Remastered. But yeah, Dark Souls 3, I'm surprised it's so high up there. I love Dark Souls 3. I'll always be a defender of it, because there's just been a lot of interactions on my streams where, people are not fans of it. They don't like how it looks. It's one of those bizarre things where it's like, it's hard for me to connect with those negative opinions about it, because I just disagree flat out. Like, I've heard multiple people say that it's a drab, ugly game, and I'm like, I mean, it's kind of like a darker palette, sure, but overall, I feel like it's a very, I don't know, I like the look of it. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it. I like the bosses in it. I like everything about Dark Souls 3. It's not my favorite Soulsborne game, probably. I think that's kind of leaning towards Bloodborne more these days. But to me, Dark Souls 3, especially with its amazing DLCs, is basically a masterpiece. And it's, a clear build-up from Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 2 is kind of the black sheep. It's a weird one. But then Dark Souls 3 was like just a masterpiece at the time for what it was. And if you ever played Dark Souls 1, try to get to Dark Souls 3, because it's really just such an improvement, I think, to the formula. At number 3, we have The Binding of Isaac Rebirth with 362 hours. Man, oh man, this is one of those games that's like, you might have been watching me for a long time on YouTube, but you don't know how much of an Isaac fan that I am. Isaac just introduced me to roguelikes as a genre, and back in 2012, when I first had my first gaming PC, Isaac was all the rage on Steam. It was like the biggest kind of Steam indie game. And then there's been so many versions and DLCs and everything. Rebirth was kind of like the big kind of remake, and then they built off of that. But yeah, man, The Binding of Isaac, I mean, Edmund McMillan had such just an amazing game on his hands with this one, to where it grew into, such a popular thing, and for good reason. To me, The Binding of Isaac is the most addictive roguelike there is. I've done everything in Hades, I've done other, roguelikes, but Isaac, there's just something about it. The items, the characters, the powers, whatever. There's something about how that game is designed that it is just the most addictive game I've probably ever played. I think I would put Isaac as the most addictive game outside of League of Legends, which thankfully is not on Steam, so you're not going to hear me talk about it in this video because that is a pox on my life. Although luckily I've been not reformed, but recovered from League addiction for quite some time now. Anyways, back to Isaac. I mean, there's just so many things to unlock. There's so many different synergies for different items you can get to kind of make your character have these crazy builds that just makes runs so much fun. And then there's this like horrible luck element where Edmund kind of designed the game to be, you know, it can really crap on you. You can really get some crappy items, literally, because the aesthetic of Isaac is very disease and feces themed. There's a lot of really disgusting things about it, which turns some people off. But if you know Edmund, that's kind of his shtick. But yeah, man, I love Isaac. We used to do runs back in the day all the time, and it's my favorite roguelike and will always be. And coming in at number 2, which I'm so happy it's here, is Stardew Valley with 397 hours, which is honestly crazy to me that I put that much time into it, but it makes sense if you know the game because it's very you know, you start a day, you finish the day, you rinse and repeat over and over. It doesn't really get that boring. But if you don't know what Stardew Valley is, basically it's a life farming simulator, kind of like Harvest Moon. I think the creator, Eric Baroni, was heavily inspired by Harvest Moon, if I remember correctly. And yeah, man, it's the wholesome game everybody needs in their life. It's the type of game that you play and your heart is filled with happiness as you play it, which of course is such a great thing. I mean, I've talked about this a lot, but in 2019, you know, I was not doing the best, and I kind of fell into Stardew Valley. And, you know, I was kind of going through a lot of stuff up here, as we've all experienced. And Stardew Valley really kind of took my mind off of things and helped me quite massively. And luckily, since then, like, I've gotten much stronger in terms of being able to handle that sort of situation when your mind feels like it's just, you know, constantly in a state of anxiety. But yeah, Stardew Valley really, really made me be able to get through that much easier during 2019. So that's when I put the bulk of the hours into that, most likely, because I played it non-stop. It's just very addictive, you know. You can fish, you can mine, you can farm, and then kind of as you go through the days, different things unlock. Your relationships with the townspeople deepens. There's so many secrets and weird things that you can unlock and discover, and it's just, yeah, it's a wholesome game, man. It really just puts a lot of happiness into your heart. And we're currently streaming this when I can in the mornings as a bonus stream. So if you want to check that out, just look for the red live ring on this YouTube channel around my profile picture, which is usually around 10 a.m. Mountain Time if I have bonus time to stream it. But yeah, man, I love Stardew Valley. If you're looking for a game that is, you know, it's not the most in-depth game mechanically or anything like that, but it's just playable, and it's very addictive, and it fills you with good vibes. I can't recommend Stardew Valley enough. And then finally, at number 1, which for anybody that's been watching my channel for any period of time, I mean, you should definitely be able to figure out what it is since I haven't talked about it yet. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, but of course, with 576 hours. Now that pales in comparison to the total time because I think that's specifically for Special Edition, which then was converted into Anniversary Edition, but that's not even including the original base Skyrim, and that's not even including like my time with it on Xbox 360 when it first released, and any other time with it. So I mean, 500, you know, almost 600 hours is not at all what that is. It's like way higher than that. But that is the number 1 game that Steam is telling me. And obviously, what's left to be said about Skyrim on this channel at this point? I will be a defender of Skyrim till my dying day, which I know is weird because it's an immensely popular and successful game. But I think it just, yeah, certain things get to that point where they're so popular, there's like kind of a pushback against it. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people say Morrowind is much better. A lot of people say Oblivion is much better. And of course, to each their own. But for me, as I've stated many times on my streams, I genuinely think objectively, that Skyrim is the best Elder Scrolls game to date. And obviously, you know, it's mainly just the design of it. It's so fun to go through the guilds. Yes, Oblivion does have better guild quests in some respects and this and that. But going through the guilds, going through the quest lines, and the exploration, the random encounters, the handcrafted dungeons and everything, I love them. I think it's the height of the series personally, and, you know, obviously has just created a lot of replayability for me. And yeah, man, I mean, that day when it released, 11/11/11, me and my friends were in line at GameStop for the midnight release, got it, all went home. They all got in a party chat, and I said, no, I have to play this completely alone. I'll be in the party chat, but I'll have everybody muted because I have to experience it. It was that big of a moment for me, you know. The build up to the release was so immensely important at that time. So yeah, man, I mean, to the surprise of nobody, Skyrim is going to be number 1. And that is my top 10 most played games on Steam. Now, that's not including anything off. So like I said, MapleStory, I mean, that would be way up there. Also, League of Legends would be way up there. Also, recently, Marvel Rivals is probably taking a crack at it as well. Of course, I've played so many other games than this, but that is what Steam is telling me is my top 10. So let me know in the comments, what are your top 10, or if that's too much for you, you know, what's your number 1 game played? I would be interested to know. And yeah, if you'd like to support me in what I do, you can click join under the video to become a member, and then you'll get all of these videos as soon as they are uploaded, especially the scheduled ones, obviously, like a week in advance, whatever. Or you can check out the Patreon for literally $1. You get, I think, 3 completed series, 1 ongoing, and then 1 massive stream series, which we're doing every Tuesday and Friday, going live on that channel for literally $1 that you can cancel instantly. But either way, thank you very much for watching. Hope you found this video fun. I found it very fun to do, and I will see you in whatever comes next. Bye.